Trump wants to make Gaza into a holiday hub, one without Palestinians. Speaking at a press conference with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday evening, Trump suggested that Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza and find a beautiful, fresh piece of land elsewhere, one from which they wouldn't return.
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. Why would they want to return? The place has been hell. If we can get a beautiful area to resettle people permanently in nice homes and where they can be happy and not be shot, not be killed, not be knifed to death like what's happening in Gaza.
Though this idea sparked outrage, it's not the first time it's been put forward. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has previously talked about moving Palestinians out of Gaza and developing its valuable seafront property there.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterward.
Kushner was hugely influential to Trump's Middle East policy in his first term, and both men are real estate-minded with big ambitions for regional change in the Middle East. The idea that the US would take ownership over Gaza seems nonsensical for a president who campaigned on reducing US intervention abroad, but there is a workaround. There are currently 100 US Special Forces veterans in Gaza, hired by the private security firm UG Solutions to help run checkpoints there. And it's not just the US. The UAE has also discussed sending private contractors to help manage Gaza. But this plan would shatter the already fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Although Phase 1 is advancing according to schedule, Phase 2 seems far more uncertain, as Netanyahu has been vague about the details to avoid upsetting his right-wing allies. After Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich threatened to resign from government if ceasefire talks reach stage 2, Netanyahu has feared that his government will collapse if he takes things much further. Netanyahu has only kept his right-wing support so far by calling the ceasefire temporary and saying that Israel has the right to restart the war in Gaza if it needs to. Senior officials report that Netanyahu has asked Israel's military for operational plans in Gaza once Phase 1 expires on March 1st. Netanyahu is hoping to get Trump's assurance that the US will support Israel if it does restart the war. But Trump has spoken in favor of the ceasefire, hoping for the release of the remaining captives and for it to reach Phase 2. However, Trump is also close to many far-right and pro-settler figures in Israeli politics that are looking to torpedo that very ceasefire. For example, Trump mega-donor Miriam Adelson is a large pro-settler figure in Israeli and US politics. The Trump administration has also apparently talked with Bezalel Smotrich, whom the Biden administration refused to meet. In his earliest days in office, Trump removed sanctions from violent and extremist Israeli settlers in the West Bank and brought senior officials into his cabinet who believe that Israel has the biblical right to annex the occupied West Bank. Trump is also extremely popular in Israel, where 70% of Israelis polled support his plan to move Palestinians out of Gaza. But there is another big obstacle to this plan: neighboring Arab states. After Trump's comments, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Egypt, the UAE, and Jordan wrote a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio voicing their opposition to the idea that Palestinians be moved elsewhere. This is partly because of the legacy of the 1948 Nakba, in which 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their homes without the right to return. However, it is also because accepting large amounts of Palestinian refugees into their countries is seen as politically and financially destabilizing. Many point to Jordan, whose hosting of the Palestinian Liberation Organization in the 1970s nearly led the country into political crisis. For this reason, Egypt has apparently moved tanks to its border with Gaza after Trump's comments, while Jordan has said that it would close the border if Israel tried to send Palestinians there. So, with all these obstacles, how does Trump plan to push this idea forward? It would create chaos with Arab states, it could mean American boots on the ground, a hugely unpopular idea, and it would upend the already fragile ceasefire. Could it just be a negotiating tactic to pressure Hamas? Could it be setting the scene for Saudi normalization to save the day by leading to a Palestinian state, as with the UAE and the Abraham Accords of 2020? Could it be the attempt to give Netanyahu an attractive policy to shore up his support from his right-wing allies at home? Or could it be an attempt to provoke Hamas into violating the ceasefire, and so giving Israel an excuse to restart the war in Gaza? We'll have to wait and see. Trump has pushed Netanyahu to send a negotiating team to Doha to discuss phase 2 of the ceasefire. However, the talks in Doha increasingly seem like a sideshow compared to the main event in Washington.